All right, we are at the final video from the 6 weeks week 4. Oh my lord. Hopefully you have not completely lost it. Now, with all the errors that I had previously, I still had 6 people paying attention to my post in Google Classroom because they got hundreds. So, it is very possible if you pay attention to be successful. So here's your formula chart again. You got your special right triangles. We talked about a 30, 60, 90 for the bulk of 2 videos and a chunk of 1. And now we're going to jump into 45, 45, 90 triangles. You got question 13 through 16 after this video. Pay attention. So, what's different here? Well, I only see 2 colors instead of 3. Make sure you are drawing this. 2 of the sides are the same. The 2 sides that make the right angle are called the legs. We don't have a short and a long leg. They're just legs because they're the exact same length. Then you've, of course, got the hypotenuse that is across from the right angle. So, your ratio of sides for a 45, 45, 90 triangle is x to x to x radical 2. The legs are across from the 2 45-degree angles, and the hypotenuse, again, is across from the right angle. These 2 angles are congruent, so I don't care what I label them with as far as variables. As long as I label them with the same thing, or I put 2 arcs to show they're congruent, by definition, they have to be 45 if this is 90. Just mathematically, it comes out that way. So if you know either of the legs of the 45, 45, 90, and you want to find the hypotenuse, you simply multiply by radical 2. Remember when I said earlier the 2's are on the hypotenuse? On the previous triangle, we had 2x. Well, this one has the radical 2. So that's one way to kind of not mix them up, aside from using your formula chart, is the 2's are on the hypotenuse. All right, so take whatever the leg measures and double it. Times, I'm sorry, don't do that. I said that wrong. Take whatever's on the leg and multiply it times radical 2. Radical 2. All right, so if I don't see anything on the leg, that makes it easy. So like this first example, 15. Okay, 15 times radical 2, I learned in the very first video last week, you're going to slide that 15 next to a radical 2. That's easy. On number 14, though, you have a radical 2 already there, but this isn't the side that you wanted a radical 2 on, so we are going to have to actually multiply it. So when you do that, you're going to have a radical times itself, which means you take that number out and put it in front of the radical. So notice, if you needed a radical 2, but you had it, notice how you can do some mental math. This one doubles and that went away. That is specifically because that was a radical 2 and this was supposed to be a radical 2. Again, that's a mental math that you got to understand. Don't just start doubling everything, but it specifically works in this triangle. Number 15, I changed up the way I measure the angles. Okay, I just gave them the same measure. I don't care what they are with a variable. So if that's 90 degrees and you have 2 angles left over that are the same, mathematically it's going to come out to be 45-degree angles. So to go from leg to hypotenuse, you multiply by radical 2. Well, I can do this in mental math. The 10 stays, the 3 is going to be doubled. It's 10 radical 6. Pause the video, see if you can attempt these 3 problems. And hopefully you attempted them and unpause and now see if your answers match. Just pointing out that we had a square number under the radical, so there ends up being no radical there. All right, so if you know the hypotenuse, how do you find the legs? Well, the best method, if I have a radical 2 where I wanted a radical 2, that's easy. I will just divide by it. Remember, anything divided by itself is 1. It's going to cancel out. Okay? A special, the second method is going to be when you don't see it. So if I see it, divide by radical 2, simple. But if I don't see it, I'm going to use that second number, that radical 2 over 2. Remember in the previous week, we can't leave a radical in the denominator. So we slide that radical to the top, pull that number down, and that is the special number that we multiply by. So, simplify. Okay, pretty straightforward. Only 2 different sides on this triangle, so that's it. Now we go through these examples and we'll be done. So again, if you don't see a radical 2 there, use that special number. Let's go through 3 examples. So I have a 45, 45, 90. I see a radical 2 on the side that's supposed to have one. Easy. I know 17 is going to go here. So I divided by a radical 2 and I got the 17. Here I don't see a radical 2 where I'm supposed to. So I know I'm going to end up cutting this in half. Cutting it in half and putting a radical 2 there because dividing by 2 times radical 2. So let me go back and show you mental math. You don't see any radicals and it's a 45, 45, 90. Cut it in half, put a radical 2 there. 15 radical 2. Over here, you can use that same mental math again, but you're going to simplify underneath. Cut it in half is 3. Put a 2 underneath, 20, but you're going to end up simplifying that 20. So, divide by radical 2. Wait a minute, I realize a radical over radical can be one big radical. That 10 divided by 2 turns into 5, and this was actually easier than we thought. So there's a couple of different ways you can approach these. If you see one method, great. If you don't, then use the other. All right, pause the video, see if you can do these 3, and we're about done. Show your answers, see if you got them. Should have had a radical 2, put the number in front, which is 1. Good. This was the same. I just do the same examples. Hopefully you're paying attention. You should have got these. So, sum it up in the picture. Both legs are the same, so you're simply either going from the hypotenuse to the leg or vice versa. From legs to hypotenuse, what do we do? Times radical 2. Why did I not write the answer on here, what that is? It's okay. To go backwards is divided by radical 2. And in summary in words, from x to x radical 2 is times 2. From x radical 2 to x is, I said that wrong again. From x to x radical 2 is times radical 2. From x radical 2 to x is divided by radical 2. And then here's your special number. Slide that radical to the top, pull the number down underneath. So, your 4 questions. Fill in the blank. We learned about 2 types of special what triangles? Right triangles. Please type your answer in lowercase. If you put capital, it will be wrong. Fill in the blank. There is a special right triangle, not triangles. Boy, that grammar's bad. Called a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And for the next 2, what was that special number that we're going to use? Instead of dividing by radical 2, I'm going to slide the radical to the top, pull that number down. It is radical 2 over 2. So you are just going to type the number 2 and the number 2. Don't put a radical symbol. It will be wrong. So click those answers in for video number 4. This is the end of video 4. Don't forget, now you can go to Google Classroom and click the link to do your quizzes. Don't just, get rid of this knowledge, because for the rest of the school year, this is what's going to build on, what we're going to build on to get to the final lessons. We'll start talking about perimeter, and we're going to use some of these special right triangles where you're going to have to find measures of sides and area and whatnot. So it's all going to come together. That is the end of your lesson. Again, please no guessing. We have spent a lot of time on these videos, or I have spent a lot of time on these videos. And some of you are doing really well and are actually appreciative of the videos. But if you're going into quizzes and then guessing, like some of you that I had some one-on-one conversations with, and I can see you're taking 60 seconds to answer 20 questions, you're not putting in the effort. And you are definitely better than what effort you're putting into. So let's do a better job so we can have a better representation of our knowledge.